Hi, gang. Hello, hello. Here is your Wednesday poll question at Smerconish.com. Based on whatever you've read or watched of the Hunter Biden interviews this week, do you mostly agree with him? I wasn't sure how to word it. I'm looking for a gut check on Hunter based on what you've seen or read this week. Perfect if you've actually watched one or the other of these two interviews. One is getting the majority of the attention, as I'll discuss in just a moment. Get lucky in no time at Parks Casino in Shippensburg, located right in central Pennsylvania, off exit 29 of Route 81. That's 45 minutes from the state capitol in Harrisburg. Parks Casino, my casino of choice. You know that. In Shippensburg, so close to Hagerstown, Maryland, and Martinsburg, West Virginia. The nearby Pennsylvania towns of Chambersburg, Carlisle, and Greencastle. Parks Casino Shippensburg celebrating military veterans on Monday. You just show your military veteran ID. You'll get a free hot dog lunch with chips and a soda as a thank you from Parks Casino. Every Tuesday, it's the Parks Casino 50% golden discount. Take my recommendation. Check out all the action, the entertainment, the excitement that they have to offer. Parks Casino Shippensburg, 100% smoke-free, 500 state-of-the-art slot machines, 48 live dealer electronic table games featuring blackjack and roulette, plus a great daily happy hour. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, probably Parks Casino in Shippensburg. Get in on all the action. Parks Casino Shippensburg off Interstate 81. Visit parkscasino.com, Parks with an X. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, I'm ready for football season, as proven by the fact that I am in my Eagles attire today. Yesterday's poll question, 37,149. I wondered if we were going to pop 40,000 yesterday. We didn't, but it was a lot of voting. Name the Washington football team. I'm putting the magic Sharpie in your hand, and you get to name that team. Would it be Commanders or Redskins? 73.05% went with Commanders. 26.95% said Redskins. I thought that was going to be closer. I'm not surprised that it was Commanders that won out, but I figured it was going to be a closer race based on telephone calls and just anecdotal information. The Hump Day poll question at Smerconish.com. Based on whatever you've read or watched of Hunter Biden's interviews this week, do you mostly agree with him? Hunter just sat for two interviews. One is getting more attention than the other. Perhaps because of its duration, it was 3 hours in length. First, he sat with former DNC chair Jamie Harrison, who has just launched a podcast. And then he sat for YouTube's Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan, who's a guy in the Philly burbs. They recorded this either in Delaware or in the Philly burbs a couple of weeks ago. There were a lot of different references to their location. If you put Hunter Biden and Andrew Callahan in a search engine, you'll just see how much coverage this conversation has generated. Enormous already. Frankly, it's like a book that comes out, big books on Tuesdays, as I've said many times. And some of the books, think Original Sin with Jake Tapper and Alexander Thompson. It's getting so much attention that media outlets put out, well, here are the 5 things you need to know. Here are the 7 things that happen in this interview. In my thumbnail for the YouTube presentation of today's poll question, I had one word, Festivus. I had a photograph, a screen grab actually, of Callahan and Hunter and the word Festivus, because above all else, it was a 3-hour-long airing of grievances. I can't tell you that I watched all 3 hours, but what I did yesterday is I knew this was getting a lot of attention. And as I was doing my read-in for the program for a good 2 hours, I had opened the link on my laptop. I let the interview play, and I was doing my work, keeping an eye and listening to what they were saying. I was really happy that I did. I was really, really happy that I invested the time and didn't simply rely on the sound bites. If you want to go in soundbite form, okay, here are the 5 biggest takeaways according to Newsweek. The 5 biggest takeaways from the sit down with Andrew Callahan. He speaks about his father's health. in detail. That's one of their takeaways. He condemns the Democratic establishment. Yeah, that's one way of saying it. That's another of the Newsweek takeaways. A third, he praises Kamala Harris. He opens up about his laptop and he suggests the U.S. should invade El Salvador. Why does he say that? It has to do with Abrego Garcia and immigration. I didn't find that to be such a significant aspect of the conversation. Now, if you want to know what are the 5 quote unquote most bizarre moments of Hunter, you go to Fox News. Bizarre moment number 1, according to Fox News, is that George Clooney sabotaged Biden's campaign. Bizarre moment, according to Fox News, number 2, Biden says F you to Americans concerned about immigration. Bizarre detail number 3, Fox News, Biden says his father was on Ambien before the disastrous debate with Trump. Detail number 4, Biden unleashes on Democratic strategists and Obama allies. And bizarre revelation number 5, according to Fox News, Biden rips top Democrats for undermining Kamala Harris campaign. I will play audio clips again I did a little bit yesterday, but not enough as much as I want to go into today on radio from this interview. But let me give you my take. My take in very short form is as follows. I don't agree with his political assessment that his father could have won, should have stayed in. The whole Ambien bit, the idea that, first of all, I think there's a timeline issue because while it's true that President Biden had been overseas, my recollection is that he was overseas and that he came back to the West Coast, attended that Clooney fundraiser where he did look like a deer in headlights. And Hunter goes into what was going on the stage that day, and he has a lot to say about George Clooney. But I think that there was an interim period before the debate, because my recollection is that he went to Camp David and did debate prep for a couple of days. So the Ambien thing doesn't wash with me, but there's a bigger point about the Ambien thing, and that is that the Ambien thing suggests that it was a one-off, right? Think about it logically. Do you remember in the immediate aftermath of the debate, first you had First Lady Jill Biden saying to him, Joe, you answered every question. You remember that at the immediate event that they had thereafter? And we were told that night, oh, he had a cold. He had a cold. And now the Ambien defense is one that suggests that, like, it was just a bad night. It wasn't just a bad night. He's old. And we all saw with our own eyes the deterioration. Hey, it comes for all of us. It comes for all of us. So I can't buy into that. Second, while I appreciated the discussion of Hunter's background and work background, because all we knew before is that he was the guy with the crack pipe and the hookers and the bathtub and all those images that the New York Post relished in showing to us. I wish there had been more discussion and more questioning by Andrew Callahan of Hunter pertaining to Burisma in particular and his involvement in Ukraine. Covered, yes, to the extent that I would have liked. No, it's certainly not. Third reaction from me. I appreciate his loyalty to his father and his family. I appreciate his loyalty to his father and his family. And I think this conversation, you know how the Bidens always went to Martha's Vineyard for Thanksgiving? And do you remember when prior to the election, I remember they were going to Martha's Vineyard. So that would have been what, 23? And you wondered, what's the conversation around the table? Is Joe really going to run? Will they try and talk him out of it? What I most get from Hunter is this unvarnished prism into the thinking, I think, of not just Hunter, but of the family members generally. So I thought that this was, probably the way that the Bidens talk about a lot of these people is what you heard Hunter say on the record in this Andrew Callahan interview. 4, and this is most important, I think. I think points 4 and 5 are most important and most impacted me in watching it. I appreciated Hunter Biden. I appreciated his openness, his willingness to go anywhere in this conversation, the sort of fearless way in which he presents himself, he was so, you could tell, eager to unleash and to go on the record. I only wish he'd done it with me. I think that he was honest about his flaws. I think that he was honest about his struggles, honest about his addiction, self-deprecating. And this is like me sizing up Hunter, who I've never met, not as far as I know, but watching him for a good 2 hours. Very smart. Very smart. I mean, look, the impression that many of us have is the laptop, the digital trail, and all those ghastly images that were published by the Post as a result. So if that's your frame of reference, I mean, I remember he wrote a book and he did one interview. I think it was on ABC. Strangely, I remember where I was when I watched the interview, but it wasn't all that revealing. The 3-hour interview was very revealing, and I recommend it. And there were, again, I gave you the shortcomings. I don't buy a lot of what he was saying, and I've identified just a bit of that. But I was impressed. Yeah, I was impressed with many things that I saw in Hunter Biden. A smart guy, a loyal guy to his family, and I respect that. And somebody who's been through hell and was willing to talk about it, and to talk about it in a way so that others could learn from his mistakes. I thought that was valuable. And I'm sure many of you won't want to hear me say that, but that was my impression. Oh, I have a cameo in this. I had no idea. As I say, I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and all of a sudden my image popped up on the screen. They just used like 20 seconds or so of something relatively nondescript that I had said on CNN. But most importantly, I think I've given you 4 items so far. Maybe I haven't, But number 5, or finally, it's this. The interview confirmed for me what I believed this was all about. In terms of Hunter, in terms of his relationship with his dad, and something that I said to his aunt, Joe's sister, Val, when she sat right across from me where I'm seated right now. And that is that at its core, this is a story about addiction. This is not a story about fraud and business. I mean, there are, Joe got himself, I'll say it this way. I think that Joe and Hunter put themselves in a bad position, and their whole Burisma business, I don't think I have a clear understanding of what really went down there. But I'll be in the minority on this, and that's fine. I don't see this primarily as a story of, when you talk about the Bidens, as one of influence peddling. I see this as a story of a father trying desperately to save his son, and maybe having blind spots as a result of that. I don't think that Hunter was so much on Air Force Two with Joe overseas because, the big man or the big guy or whatever they say, has a piece of the action, and it's just a grave. I think it is Joe thrilled that Hunter at that time seems like he's getting on his feet. And that Hunter, who lost his birth mother and his sister in that horrific accident, and then many years later loses his brother, and Joe, who loses his wife and his daughter and then his son. Hunter's all he's got left from the original core, obviously Jill as well. And I don't mean to diminish that relationship. It looks like a great relationship. Can't imagine what that was like. And I think that that's what drove a lot of the behavior. I think that's what drove a lot of the behavior. Hunter had a hard life. And not only has sustained the loss of the people closest to him, but also has had to battle his demons in a way that many others have as well. And I think that guided all else. And so that Joe clings to Hunter and Hunter clings to Joe, and each of them have blind spots. Maybe Joe turned a blind eye to some things that he should have reined in and called out and spared himself and Hunter a lot of discomfort. But I think that the purpose was to try and keep Hunter alive. I think that was Joe's motivation, and I don't blame him for that. So yeah, sorry if I'm rambling and off script, but I think you know how I'm voting in this. I think you know how I'm voting on this based on whatever you. This is the way I worded the question. Based on whatever you read or watched of Hunter Biden's interviews this week, do you mostly agree with him? I do. I'm not accepting. Don't take me out of context. I'm not accepting all that I heard from him, but I came away from that conversation with an appreciation that heretofore I did not have for Hunter. I don't know. I have no idea how this poll question turns out because most of you, and I don't mean this negatively, but most of you are not going to have the opportunity to invest the time and watch this interview, and consequently, you'll be relying on all the sound bites. And the way the sound bites are being played depend on the media outlet and what they want you to hear, to reinforce some narrative. I'm just trying to give it to you straight because as I say, a good 2 hours of it is what I was able to pay attention to. So based on whatever it is, including what I've just said, based on whatever it is that you've gleaned from these Hunter interviews, what do you think? Does he make some sense to you? Do you mostly agree with him is the way that I worded it, whatever that might mean? It's a gut check. It's a Hunter gut check that I'm asking you for. All right. Like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, everybody go to Smerconish.com and cast a ballot on the Wednesday poll question. Let's see where this one turns out. Again, it's going to be very interesting, right? And finally, by the way, I wish him Hunter good. I hope he can stay on the straight and narrow. I heard him say, 6 years and X days he's been clean and sober. So that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Okay. See you, gang.